You are watching Vlast KZ on K+, trends, highlights and personalities of the past week. I am Asylbek Abdullah. Optimistic tragedy. Saving theater director and dissident Vlast KZ. The day lasts more than 100 years. The inevitable 2-on-1 holiday, Astana Day and birthday of the head of state. Why I was named Mukhtar. The 70th anniversary of poet and public figure Mukhtar Shakhanov, caught between two Decembers. The past week began with good news. Vlast KZ was released from the Aktau detention center. Many falsely perceived the news as the precursor of political thawing. Already by Friday, everything fell back into place, and law enforcement agencies once again reported news filled with the traditional punitive content. Quite unexpectedly, the news were related to the events at the Shetpe station, which took place on December 17th of last year. To recall, residents of Shetpe village came out of their homes to support the Zhanaozian oil workers. They clashed with armed police, and according to official information, as a result of police shooting, 1 man was killed and about 10 were wounded. At the end of the week, the Department of Internal Affairs of Mangistau region confirmed to Radio Azatik that 2 residents of Shetpe village, Bolat Amanyazov and Bolat Zeilov, participants of events at Shetpe station, were caught and placed in a detention center. According to their relatives, they were detained on June 19th, long before this report. The detainees are facing the same charges that were brought against convicted individuals in the Shetpe case. They are charged with obstructing the work of public transportation, organization of public disorder, and participation in it, and use of violence against state officials. The trial over Shetpe village residents ended in May, and as a result, 4 were sentenced to 4 to 7 years in jail, 1 was acquitted, 1 received a suspended sentence, and 6 were pardoned. Now there will be another case over Amanyazov and Zeilov. It seems the Zhanaozian syndrome will be around for long. The intrigue around the release of Vlast KZ came to an end this past week on Wednesday, July 3rd. The director stepped out of the Aktau jail at 10 p.m. and gave a press conference in Almaty on the following day.
Мы поговорили, я категорически отказывался. Ермек,
we've had a conversation and I strongly refused. Yermek, what's in it for you? I've got my own plans. I plan to go on a hunger strike on July 6 after learning the date of the trial. So the idea was to drag my corpse to the court and make them put a corpse on trial.
Я должен свое тело, свой труп донести до суда. Я хотел, чтобы они мой труп судили.
But I offered my own, less violent scenario and they accepted it. Vlast KZ gave his press conference the day after his release from the detention facility of Aktau under the patronage of his friend and liberator Yermek Tursunov. The room of the National Press Club was packed. The film director Tursunov told how he met with the National Security Committee leadership and how he was granted a permission to study the case materials. He also told how he convinced Vlast KZ to sign the Article 65, which stands for exemption from criminal liability for active repentance. In turn, Atabayev told the media how brutally he was arrested. Nurgaliyev ordered his colleague to help detain me as he didn't want to be the only one responsible. A few punches, I fell down, they picked me up and beat me more. Then they threw me in the car and handcuffed me. They told me that I won't be able to prove all this, and when I mentioned to all the witnesses, they just laughed at me.
Oh God. Oh my God.
While Atabayev was in jail, the young actors of one of the German theaters organized a protest performance on the streets of Berlin. A young woman, a symbol of blood-stained liberty, fell prostrate right outside the Kazakhstan embassy in Germany to protest against the detention of stage director Atabayev. The director of Goethe Institute personally commented on Atabayev's release. We are very relieved that Vlast KZ is free and would like to congratulate him on this. He's a very important partner for us, for the German Institute. We've been cooperating with him for a long time. Cultural leaders and directors in Germany immediately responded to the arrest of Atabayev and appealed to the government of Kazakhstan, as we did. This year, he will be awarded a Goethe Medal in Weimar for his merits promoting Kazakh-German cultural dialogue. We are very glad for him. On my way here, I was thinking, if they do not release Janbolat, then I will have to go back there and demand to put me back in jail. Well, he's not guilty. I've said things way more radical than he did, yet I'm released and he's not. The journalist Janbolat Mamai was charged with the same articles that Atabayev was previously charged with, the incitement of social hatred and invoking to overthrow the constitutional regime. Without a proper public pressure, a 24-year-old Janbolat will remain in custody. The film director Yermek Tursunov doesn't know him. Janbolat's father Mamai Bikujeev says that he is more worried about the fate of his son now that the eminent director is no longer involved in this case, as the young man might be entirely forgotten. In over 2 weeks upon the arrest of Janbolat, his father was granted a visit to his son for the first time. I finally got to see him and we've talked. I'm going to go back there at 3 p.m. again. Janbolat didn't know about Bolat Atabayev's release. I told him that Atabayev is now at home and he was recently released. What was his reaction? He only said that it's good that they released him. He seemed happy about it. However, I don't know when Janbolat himself will be released. In the meantime, on charges of inciting social hatred and involvement in Zhanaozen tragedy, opposition leader Vladimir Kozlov, public activist Sirik Sapargali, journalist Janbolat Mamai and Mangistau oil strike activist Akjanat Aminov are still kept in Aktau detention facility. The others targeted in the investigation, including Tulitaeva, Azhigalieva, Amirova as well as Atabayev, were given the status of the witnesses. The politician and friend of Vladimir Kozlov, Jasaral Kuanashalin, says that the case is reaching its epilogue and believes that the role of Yermek Tursunov as a liberator of Bolat Atabayev was minimal. In my personal opinion, it's very unlikely when even the famous person goes to the National Security Committee, gets permission and pulls the arrested men out of jail, especially in Kazakhstan, with all the continuous severe political repressions. Therefore, I believe that NSC realized they don't have grounds to convict these people, especially on such serious charges, and they decided to solve the problem this particular way, to save face and keep the public happy. I'm telling you once again, you have no business being there. You need to be in theater. Some bastards have used you. I don't know who was it, but they used him, even though he disagrees. No one used me. I was supposedly sent to Zhanaozen and instructed by Kozlov, as if I was his subordinate. I told him, why would I report to Kozlov? Who is he really? Why would you think that I followed the orders of Kozlov to go to Zhanaozen? It was me who came to see him. I asked for his help, and this was my idea. It's known that no good deeds goes unpunished. Inspired by success of Yermek Tursunov, colleagues of Janbolat Mamai decided to send a letter to the president. On July 6, they wanted to congratulate Nazarbayev on his birthday and to plead to release their friend at the same time. However, they haven't managed to reach the Almaty Central Post Office on president's birthday and they were detained by police. Moreover, the law enforcement officers tried to conceal the fact of the arrest of 6 people. What is an arrest? It's a violation of rights of any person who was arrested without a reason. That's called kidnapping. Searching for the arrested, the journalist and social activist first went to City Department of Internal Affairs and then to the Regional Department of Internal Affairs. The police claimed not to be aware of the arrests. However, while filing a report on kidnapping, our camera captured one of the detainees in a police car window and another detainee in the window of police station. We explained to them that the kidnapped people were innocent as they haven't committed anything illegal. They were simply abducted outside their homes and near the postal office and taken away. This is a violent and illegal action. Therefore, those who have committed a criminal act against these people should be punished instead. However, they insisted that 3 hours haven't passed yet. 3 hours later, all the detainees were released. No penalties, no acts, and no explanation. I believe that an artist should be above politics. He disagrees with me on this one, but I think that an artist shouldn't be involved in politics. Of course, he can be considered an artist without his citizenship, but he needs to use other methods. If you would come to Zhanaozen to stage a play, then the consciousness of these young guys who don't read books would have grown, but instead you're using the shocking methods of struggle. You provoke them yourself and you give them a reason. I was at a deadlock. I feel for Zhanaozen. I've been there. I know people there. I could no longer bear this pain in my heart. Therefore, I had to release it.
Next on Vlast KZ. The day lasts more than 100 years. The inevitable two-on-one holiday, Astana Day and birthday of the head of state. Why I was named Mukhtar. The 70th anniversary of poet and public figure Mukhtar Shakhanov, caught between two Decembers. These are the topics on Vlast KZ for this week.
Главные события в Казахстане. Достоверные факты. Эксклюзивные комментарии. Читайте в Казахстане информационно-аналитический портал «Республика». Чтобы обойти блокировки, воспользуйтесь доменом respublicas.info. Вы окажетесь на так называемом прокси-портале. Специально разработанные канадскими специалистами по интернет-технологиям, прокси-порталы помогают пользователям получать информацию в тех странах, где блокируют интернет-ресурсы. В Китае, Иране, в Казахстане. Вы принимаете условия использования системы и попадаете на страницу информационно-аналитического портала «Республика». Материалы интернет-портала также доступны пользователям всемирной сети Facebook. facebook.com/respublica.kaz. Если вы хотите поделиться информацией, вам есть что рассказать, звоните в редакцию «Республики». Наши телефоны в Казахстане +7 727 273 92 95, в Москве +7 495 621 87 03.
Новости Казахстана на казахском языке смотрите в 21:00 и далее каждый нечетный час. Новости Казахстана на русском языке в 22:00 и далее каждый четный час. Новости Казахстана на английском языке смотрите в 16:30, 17:30, 18:30 и 19:30 со вторника по субботу. Время Астаны. Изготовление и размещение рекламы на канале KplusTV.
Among many comments on the optimistic tragedy of Bulat Atabayev and Yermak Tursunov, the comment of Yevgeny Zhovtis stands out. In one social networking site, he wrote, "My extensive experience in various campaigns in support of detainees shows that our government does not do anything that could be taken as a concession to internal and external pressure regardless of its source, whether it is international organizations or foreign governments. The government takes action towards relaxation in terms of confinement and termination of criminal prosecution only as a result of so-called quiet diplomacy or simply by bargaining with foreign partners. If, however, there is a large-scale public campaign around the case, then the government will always hold a firm stand and consider any concession as a sign of weakness. It does not bother itself with concepts of humanism, rationality, or some moral principles. It pursues purely political engineering goals." Therefore, when celebrating the release of Bulat, we shouldn't think that it happened because of our efforts, but instead we should try to understand what should be expected for others. This was the opinion of human rights activist Yevgeny Zhovtis.
Это мнение правозащитника Евгения Жовтиса. Участь остальных надо полагать плачевно.
One might assume that others are destined to a lamentable end. However, while determining the measure of restraint and punishment, the authorities seem to be trying to separate Vladimir Kozlov, Muratbek Kitibayev, and Mukhtar Ablazov from oil workers, artists, and other non-professional revolutionaries. For the presidential administration, these three men represent the object of hatred, since they spoil the president's life. Their isolation from Kazakh society is the best birthday gift for the head of state.
Лучший подарок Ельбасе к дню рождения.
In the boarding school where children with psychoneurological diseases live, preparations for Astana Day were in full swing. 180 students rehearse traditional dances, sew playing crafts, and draw Astana, the Astana that they see and feel. They are very beautiful from a distance, and I also think they are beautiful from inside. Aysel Jetibayeva draws for a special contest, the most famous buildings of the capital. The girl is 17 years old, and she came here recently. At first glance, nobody would guess Aysel has a slight mental retardation with behavioral disorders, but in front of the camera, she's benevolent and full of smiles. Sometimes she releases ironic comments on the hype around the holiday, but it's just for politeness' sake. In her heart, the girl really wants to win the competition. If you had an opportunity to choose the grand prize, what would you choose? I don't know. Well, if you were offered to go somewhere as the main prize, I would go to the circus. This is the circus, where not only children but also adults dream to go. For the first time in Kazakhstan, the famous Cirque du Soleil changed people's very idea of the circus genre. Free of animals, fantastic special effects, and live music. By Astana Day, 60 artists from Cirque du Soleil prepared a special 50-minute program. The majority of tailored suits bear the colors of Kazakhstan's symbols, blue and gold. The circus, for which the cheapest ticket usually costs $135, came to the capital of Kazakhstan for free, as part of a social project. At least that's what the organizers maintain. At the presentation, large families, orphans, veterans, and children with disabilities were invited in the first place. By the way, our Aysel did not see the magical gymnasts. Mental hospitals were given only 10 tickets by the local city administration. Cirque du Soleil was the only, so to speak, festive freebie. The rest of the program cost the citizens money, and sometimes considerable amounts. The 14th anniversary of the capital was celebrated with a bang. 2,000 local and foreign artists, 70,000 tickets. The average cost is from $8 to $26. The highest were for the Ilya Iverbuch Ice Show, up to $400 for places up close, $268 for the cake, a sweet copy of Akorda. $800,000 were spent to conduct the World Chess Tournament. With all this, the cost of helicopters, which were used for the first time this year to protect the capital from the air, remained a mystery. The list of additional expenses includes a reinforced brigade of janitors and police officers. One of the most protected sites during these celebrations was Timur Bekmambetov's Action Film Festival. The director timed the international event closer to Astana Day. The most recognizable guest was actor Vincent Cassel, the seductive Academy Award-winning choreographer of Black Swan and husband of Monica Bellucci. Cassel immediately gathered around him a crowd of journalists. The 100 young Asian directors did not attract as much attention, but nevertheless, they were the ones that are called on to create the new mythology of Astana. We are no longer organizing Stars of the 90s parades. We decided to spend all the powers to make Astana the center of Asian cinema. In addition, it is also the center of world chess and pastry arts. Earlier, grandmasters from 9 countries were gathered in the capital. For the first time in history, and only exceptionally, rapid chess and blitz tournament was held in express mode. Preliminaries and finals were held one after another without interruption, and even in the same city. The spent money will not pay off, organizers admit, but are we going to spare any expenses for the image of the young capital? These culinary delights are unlikely to be paid off. Tiered cakes in the form of pyramids, khanshatir and akorda, worth up to $300 were seen by everyone, but no one dared to buy anything. The main hero of the occasion, Nursultan Nazarbayev, was like a squirrel in a cage. Pushing the mayor Mangalitas Maghambetov to the background, the president commanded the Team Astana parade at all positions. He only had time to change ties. In a festive golden tie, he raises the main flag of the country. In pale lilac, he opens a monument to the popular composer Kurman Ghazi. And in the color of coffee with milk, he is present in the main event of the year, the opening of the Mosque of Sultan Hazret. The long-awaited mosque, the one it took 3 years to build, was completed just in time for Astana Day at the orders of the president. The height of the minarets is 77 meters. The main hall seats 10,000 people. A week ago, here and at other sites, a team of builders operated in emergency mode. Structures of the left bank in these hot July days are a source of special pride. They are boasted to visiting guests. Photographs are taken with them in the background, and they represent a new history, the independent Kazakhstan and its capital, which was basically built from scratch. These are the first streets of Akmalinsk and photos of the first buildings. Nothing remained of it? No, currently none of these buildings survived. In the Astana State Archives, there are relatively few documents and photographs of the city from earlier than 1990s. Kazakhstan's capital city, like a man without a past, appeared out of nowhere and has acquired an unprecedented scale, and its former name cannot be remembered that quick. First it was a Kipchak military headquarters, Bozok, then Akmala village. Although since 1862 it was classified as a city district, the only historic building that has survived here since the early 20th century is the trading house Basil Kubrin. According to legend, a St. Petersburg merchant built it for the actress who just then agreed to move to the province. From 1961, the future capital changed its name from Akmala to Tselenograd, an old-fashioned tribute to the theme of labor of those years. They began building high-rises then, even though they stand nowhere near skyscrapers of the present. And even once again becoming Akmala until 1997, the city in fact continues to be a province. Everything changes on June 10th, when Akmala becomes the capital of Kazakhstan. An inconspicuous lady marries the king, and all the grey stagnation of the past wants to be forgotten as a bad dream. Away with the old names. From 1998, the country is presented Astana, Kazakhstan's newest metropolis. After that, we started celebrating with a ceremonial presentation in 1998, for all the guests of the world, one might say. After that day, we celebrated the day of the capital, Astana. Two young residents of the capital, Dana and Ulan Akhmetov, are just namesakes. They see each other for the first time. He's from the left bank, she's from the right. He's a 7-year resident of Astana. She lived here twice as long. For a long time, the two talked on social networks. To meet in reality, they decided on the eve of Astana Day. And strangely enough, the main topic of conversation is the city, its contrasts and faces. The left bank is a person who is in step with the times. These are modern attributes, luxurious cars and houses. The right bank is hastily renovated, sometimes with decrepit houses. When Astana is being offended, I defend it. But I do not always accept what is considered normal here. While the Akhmetovs speak about their Astana, admitting that they love the city, another Akhmetov, Serik, passes by, deputy prime minister, and according to one publication, the most promising politician in Kazakhstan. It seems like he also enjoys the capital. The relaxed gait on a background of ships sailing down the Ishim presents an idyllic picture. The main part of the celebration lasted 3 days. The mood of the citizens was not even spoiled by the smog which stood on the banks of the Ishim since Thursday, especially because the Kazakh Meteorological Center reassured it's not the fault of the local organizers, it was brought from Russia, where fires rage once again. As it stands, people smile on the streets of the capital, and it seems a happier town in those days could not be found in the entire world.
Ал келесіз видеосюжет ақын Мұхтар Шахановтың 70 жылдық мерейтойы туралы. Наверное, вот так, по мнению настоящих...
In the judgment of a true Kazakh, this is how the half-Kazakh or Russian-speaking Kazakh is supposed to speak. Poet Mukhtar Shakhanov turns 70. He is considered to be the spiritual leader of national patriots. National patriots is a term coined more for the sake of journalistic or for some other cases of a xenophobic witty remark. There is no such organization and movement. It is rather an abstraction, a state of mind, a permanent awakening of national consciousness. This term is very close to the quote of Giuseppe Garibaldi. We have made Italy, now we must make Italians.
Италию мы создали, осталось создать итальянцев. Так повелось, кто акырил.
By tradition, the one who hosts the celebration of the poet's anniversary has the poet on his side. The anniversary of Shakhanov is not celebrated on a national scale, which could mean that he is a dissident.
Значит, пахнет диссидентством.
Nursultan Nazarbayev disliked the poet since the end of the 1980s, when he gave a speech at the Congress of People's Deputies of the Soviet Union. That day, Shakhanov, unexpectedly for the Kazakh delegation headed by Kolbin and Nazarbayev, as well as for the Congress headed by Mikhail Gorbachev, demanded an honest investigation of the events that took place in Almaty in December 1986. It was the poet's decision to fulfill his civic duty.
Это был гражданский поступок поэта.
It is hard to tell why he is so disliked in 2012, probably because of old memories. The poet speaks very cautiously about the Zhenozhian events of 2011 as compared to Almaty events of 1986. Between the two bloody December events lies an entirely different life.
The native land greeted its son with ovations. Mukhtar Shakhanov celebrated his 70th birthday in Shymkent Drama Theatre, where songs were sung to his music and his poems were recited. Your works Misunderstanding of Civilization and Unsolved Mystery of Genghis Khan were widely discussed at UNESCO. This goes to show you that you are a world-class poet. I believe you will continue to work for the spiritual enlightenment of the people. Once again, happy birthday. Among those who congratulated Shakhanov with his 70th birthday were the regional administration, teachers of the very school where he studied, and the staff of the local newspaper where the poet embarked on his artistic path. The anniversary of the Kazakh poet, whose works were translated into 50 languages, were celebrated back home unusually modestly. However, Mukhtar Shakhanov himself said he did not expect any luxurious celebrations in his honor. A homeland is our mother. Every child does not expect affection from the mother for his work, but the mother should honor its best children, and it must be fair. But now we have a thief who should rot in prison, awarded 2 orders and 3 medals. I do not want to stand next to him. Therefore, I refused all Kazakhstan's awards. I don't even have an honorable diploma. They wanted to give me the Khalid Kahramani. I refused.
Жетем деп туған едім. Қайғым қалтылдаса суда менің, намысыма сүйенем әрқашанда, және саған сүйенем туған едім.
The name Shakhanov was first heard in the 60s. He came into poetry with his fine lyricism and ballads. His first collection of poems, Happiness, was well received by critics and readers. Let's start the Mukhtar Shakhanov Poetry Evening.
Казахского поэта Мухтара Шаханова.
Later, Mukhtar Shakhanov's poems became famous throughout the Soviet Union in Yevtushenko and Voznesensky's translations. This is archive footage from December 19, 1986, an evening with the Kazakh poet in Moscow.
Кто живет повседневной своей суетой, разомлевший от сытости, скуки и лени, кто живет, не мечтая о дружбе святой, тот творит преступление.
In 1986, Shakhanov became the USSR Supreme Soviet Deputy. At the time, the poet led the movement to save the Aral Sea as a public activist. A delegation arrived for the first Congress of People's Deputies. At the Congress of People's Deputies, Shakhanov spoke about the December 1986 events in Almaty. His speech was broadcasted live around the world. The country had applied the mining shovels and working dogs against peaceful demonstrators for the first time. The number of casualties among the demonstrators is still hidden from the public. The event is called a manifestation of Kazakh nationalism. You can blame the 10, 50,000 people, 100,000 people, but you cannot blame the entire Kazakh people for being nationalistic. The phrase Kazakh nationalism is an accusation of the Kazakh people. So we are asking for justice to remove harsh and undeserved charges. The poet raised the timely issue for many of the Union's national republics at the time. We must accept a decree on the status of state language of the indigenous nationalities of the autonomous republics of the Union, autonomous regions and small nations, and also solve the highly urgent issue of the fate of Soviet Turkic people and Crimean Tatars who still feel uprooted in their country. Today, Mukhtar says of that time as a difficult period in his life. It cost him great effort to create an investigative commission on the events in Zhaltoksan. Then, in Shakhanov's words, he was helped by Sakharov and Boris Yeltsin. Now the poet complains that time is back. Day after day we are becoming a Kazakhstani nation. Now we are uniting with Russia. Over time there will be a common currency. Our parliaments are uniting. It will be like the Union and even worse, because today's masters of the Kremlin are on the chauvinist ways. Shakhanov himself was blamed for being a nationalist. Suffice it to recall a sensational letter by the intellectuals. 138 people led by Mukhtar Shakhanov demanded from the president to deprive Russian the status of official language. However, after the ensuing scandal, many retrieved their signatures. I didn't sign anything anywhere to start with. The question was raised differently, the raising of the status of the Kazakh language. Can you tell me, please, who would not support this idea in Kazakhstan? Of course I said yes. Maybe he worked in Kyrgyzstan as an ambassador and now thinks that he is a great politician. I think that he is a poet and not politician. People who signed the petition later declined. Bibigul Telegenova was talking nonsense. Other famous people showed who they are. This is of national interest. Only the Kazakh language should be the official language. It was even proved by the Constitutional Court. We wanted to put everything in its place and begin the opposition. The struggle must continue. The famous poet Amanxan Alim grew up on Mukhtar Shakhanov's poetry. He says the call of the times made Shakhanov switch from ballads to civic poetry. At the time of independence, the image of today's official appeared in the work of the poet. The opposition could not use Shakhanov, but in a good way. If Shakhanov was at the forefront of the opposition, then they would become a strong force, because the poet is able to convince the people, lead the people. Shakhanov is loved by the people. To demand 40 more kilometers from a 70-year-old who had already run a 42-kilometer marathon is unreal. Mukhtar Tayjan knows of his famous namesake firsthand. Together with the poet, he opposed the Kazakhstani nation doctrine and stood against the customs union with Russia and Belarus. I worked closely with him for 2 or 3 years. There were many situations. Take the elections. We wanted Shakhanov to announce his candidacy. But we have the situation. We know examples of Aron Atabek, Altenbek, Zamanbek, how the authorities reacted to influential people. Shakhanov does not lose sight of that. He is doing all he can. If he was more active, considering his prestige among the people, the authorities may have reacted otherwise. The poet is publishing a new book. He continues to write new poems. He says he has a lot more work. Shakhanov often compares the December 1986 events in Almaty with those in 2011 in Zhanaozen. 2 revolutions and the same regime. Time will come when we learn the truth about Zhanaozen. According to some reports, 100 or 200 people died there. The government claims that only 17 people did. Everything should be thoroughly investigated. We need a special commission, and sooner or later the truth will be revealed anyway.
You were watching Vlast KZ on K+. Trends, highlights and personalities of the past week. Goodbye.
Всего вам доброго и до новых встреч.